I just want my kids to live the majority of their days with their bare feet on the ground with animals and just really understanding servant leadership. And I think
Yeah.
servant leadership towards animals is one of the biggest things that people miss, like caring for something besides your children. I just think that's one of God's greatest gifts is being a servant to the land and to the animals that provide for you.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. Welcome back to What the Gut. Today on the podcast, I have one of my best friends, Becky Gross. Now, Becky was in one of my previous podcast episodes in episode 25, so y'all go check that out too, just for a little bit more context on some of the things that we're discussing today. But Becky is such a sweet person, such a special person to me, and she is a dedicated single mom who really has a passion for uncovering the hidden dangers that are in our daily environment and just empowering other moms to navigate them effectively. She balances homesteading, homeschooling, and working from home, has this love for entrepreneurship, education, and sustainable living. Becky and I always have such amazing conversations. So some of this is literally just snippets from our conversation. So take a listen, guys, and grab some coffee and enjoy.
Okay, Becky, you do homesteading and
Yes.
you're like this awesome homesteading mama. Now, what is homesteading exactly?
I guess everybody has their own version of it. For me, the root of it is like, how do I get my family back to doing as many things as my grandparents did? So
Yeah, it's like back to
basically,
basic.
yeah, back to basic, trying to take out as much outsourcing as you can and keeping all of our hard earned money local, right? For us right now, homesteading looks like chickens. So we don't buy eggs. We have our own eggs. I think we talked last time. I invested in a dairy cow. She will be a year old in March, and then fall will breed. And then once she calves, then we will have 40 to 80 gallons of milk a week. It's illegal to sell raw milk in New York State, which is why a lot of people go to having their own family milk cow, right? So that you
Yeah.
have your own milk. Obviously, we have a few chickens over the last year. Now I've realized it's not enough because they do go through molting and the period of like egg production stops for about 3 months. So then you're without eggs if you don't have a constant new supply, which is exactly why people always get new chickens in the spring. So you always are having the demand for farm fresh eggs is pretty high here. And people just are not buying from the stores anymore. They understand that those eggs that you get in the store are just chickens that are literally just bred in a cage.
Like they just squeeze the eggs out of them.
Right, versus my girls who are like pets who are just running around, like eating up all the ticks, keeping my kids safe and just,
Yeah. And like just all the stuff. Okay. I know you haven't even touched on everything that homesteading includes, but just like cows and chickens and like the eggs and the milk and all of that. I would love to do that. I think that sounds awesome. But to me, also, I don't know anything about a cow or chicken. And so, like, and just learning like the seasons that they do lay eggs and all of that, learn all this in your own time and do your own research.
My grandparents actually had a chicken farm when I was a kid growing up. So they were the first egg producers to provide eggs for Wegmans, which is a grocery store here.
Okay.
They had about 30,000 chickens. And so my dad was like part of that whole production. My grandpa invented really cool things to pick up like 2, 3 dozen eggs at a time. I've always had chickens, goats. I grew up on goat's milk, breastfed to goat's milk. There was no formula. There was none of that stuff. But I was deathly afraid of chickens my entire life.
They're not exactly like always the cutest once they become chickens.
Yeah. I had some scary events with chickens when I was little, just like roosters doing rooster things and chasing you and stuff. But yeah, chickens are easy. They're super easy, especially if you raise them from when they're little. Ours just come sit on your lap and they just can recognize like 110 different faces. So they know that you're their owner. Yeah, they're good for the kids. Like I said, they eat all the ticks. They can clear an acre of land of ticks. So they're in the backyard with the kids. So we don't have to worry about that. The cow, I had goats growing up. We had a beef cow at one point, but my dad did dairy cows when he was younger. I grew up around dairy. My dad's best friend had a dairy farm. We were always there watching milking. My other friends had dairy. I was always helping, but we never did the actual physical milking when I was a kid growing up. So that's all new for me too. I have a really amazing mentor. Her family was Mennonite. And so everything is homestead basic. Like she tried to have a cell phone for a little while and she said, I got ringing in my ears and I got rid of it because I knew it wasn't good. So
It's funny. I know so many things. So whenever Rob and I first got married, I was like, I'm not having a TV in the house. I don't want electronics. Obviously, I take my AC in Mississippi and the air condition and lights and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't want a TV. I don't want all this. And I also was not big on social media until a couple of years ago. And so I was like, I don't want any of this stuff. And he was like, no, like I like to watch my football. Like I'm going to have TVs. But if it would have been up to me at one point, that's how things would have been.
Ideally, I would love that too. No TV, no. But the reality is where we're at right now, it doesn't really allow for that to try to move yourself to homesteading. And like I said, if you just think about like the basic things that you can do, like the eggs, the milk, growing your own food, we're going to expand the garden a lot bigger this year. I produced a lot last year, but there's a lot more things and a lot more companion planting and stuff that we can do. Finish fixing up the barn and stuff so that we can, if I need to add another 20 or 30 chickens, like we have the room for it. But yeah, I just want my kids to live the majority of their days with their bare feet on the ground with animals and just really understanding servant leadership. And I think servant leadership towards animals is one of the biggest things that people miss, like caring for something besides your children. I just think that's one of God's greatest gifts is being a servant to the land and to the animals that provide for you.
Well, and God, whenever he made all the animals, he let Adam name them all instead of him naming them themselves. And if you think about it, it's gosh, like what a big special thing, right?
Yeah.
It's teaching that responsibility to your kids is really cool. Now, I know you mentioned that the chickens eat the ticks and stuff. Now, for those of you listening, Becky was on a previous podcast episode with me. It was episode 25, and she does have a history of Lyme disease, which is related to tick disease. So y'all go check that out if you have not, and you'll really appreciate the value that chickens have.
Yes.
For overeating the ticks whenever she says that. But as far as homesteading goes and just the chickens, the cows, like just that in the garden, how easy is it for somebody to just adapt to that kind of lifestyle? What are some practical tips that you would give people if they were like, wow, I really want to do that, but I don't know where to start, or maybe I live in city limits and can't have these things or whatever?
Yeah. I would say start small. So when we were at the other house, we were in a village. So I didn't have room to do a huge garden. I only had enough room to do, I think it was like 2 8x4, like little beds at the back of the garage, and just pick what you eat the most of, right? Because if we eat a ton of peppers, so it's all varieties of bell peppers, the small peppers, jalapeno pepper, just pick what you eat the most of, because then in your mind, you're eliminating the thing that you eat the most of. You're eliminating all of the toxic sprays, all of the, you just don't even know. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the organic and all those labels really just, they don't mean so much anymore, which is another reason why start small. Whatever you eat most, try and grow that. If you don't have room, like you can grow everything in a pot. You literally
Yeah.
grow everything in a pot on your back patio, in your house, whatever. I overwintered a bunch of pepper plants one of the years at the house. So my office was just full of like pepper plants. I trim them all back and let them go dormant for winter and then replant them again. And they were like 6 feet tall the next year. So people think, okay, once the garden's done, you're done and you got to restart, but you really don't. You can overwinter certain things to keep it going. But yeah, just sticking local. If you can grow what you can and then find somebody that doesn't spray and that you can partner with. Here we have a bunch of CSAs, which are the community crop share programs. There's a farmer that I've been working with for a couple years now. So we get a weekly delivery. You can do a $25 or a $40 delivery, and it's enough food for a family of 4 or a family of 5. And I know he doesn't spray. They don't spray anything. They don't use any pests, nothing. They only use natural stuff, marigolds and stuff planted with certain things. So yeah, you just have to be smart about it. There's just so many hidden ways for you to get exposed to toxins that you just don't even realize. I drink a lot of matcha and I just love that like jade matcha. I just recently found a report. It's loaded with lead and cadmium. So that could have been part of my issues with the weight and
And
emotional. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
Now I've eliminated that. We're like 20 days out of no carbs, no sugar, no matcha.
At least not that brand of matcha.
Yeah. That was an organic brand that you trust in.
It's hard to find
Yeah, it's
that.
just hard. It's hard to do that stuff. So, any homesteading is anything that I can do to eliminate any outside third party or any other contamination I can take away and just put it back into my control. Like
Yeah.
food and stuff.
Yeah. And you work from home. You're a single mom of 2 kids. So how do you find the time, or how much time does it take to devote to the cows and the chickens and the garden?
Right now, like daily chores, it's twice a day. So just depends. I'd say probably 2 hours a day right now.
Your girls can help a little bit. They're
Yeah.
younger, but they, I'm sure, so very helpful.
Yeah, my oldest is almost 12. She's good. But like I said, chickens are easy. You get big waters, big feeders, collect the eggs, check on them, let them out in the morning. They're pretty easy. Obviously, bigger animals like the cow, she's blowing through probably 15 gallons of water a day. I don't have water at the barn right now, so I gotta hike buckets up there. I'm taking water up 2, 3 times a day.
So
You know,
you're exercising with this too. You're
right,
multitasking,
right. Exercising.
getting fresh air, all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My dad always said I never needed the gym because all of the maintenance of the land and the animals was his exercise. Yeah, so she takes a little bit more time now shoveling out the pen because it's winter, so she can't be outside. But if she was outside, it's a little bit less maintenance. But I do have to like a lot for it. I try to just get up with the sun, right? Keep with the
Yeah.
circadian rhythm, get up with the sun, go to bed when the sun's going down. And I work in the morning usually as much as I can. But you just adjust. It's funny because I was thinking about like how chaotic life felt 7, 8, 9 years ago when my daughter was in public school and I was having to leave to work. And it just was a constant state of like chaos. And I
Yeah.
just felt like my nervous system just never had a chance to even settle down. And so now it's just, okay, so we'll just keep doing whatever we got to do to keep moving
And
in this direction.
like even homeschooling, I've never homeschooled my children. My children go to amazing public schools, but before I ever had kids, or I guess when I was pregnant with my first, I was like, we're going to homeschool. I don't want them going to public school just because my husband and I went to public school and while we had an okay experience, there wasn't anything super, like, tragic about it. I just want my kids to have something different. But then we couldn't afford for this or that, and I went back to school, and that just wasn't the plan at the time. But during my day-to-day right now, I work from home, but I'm like, I'm out of the house so much, just picking up my kids and stuff. And my husband takes them to school these days because he got a job where it allows him to do that. But then I'm like, I'm gone like an hour or so a day, just waiting in carpool line and stuff like that. And that takes time away from anything else. Not that
Yeah.
anything is more important, but it just takes more time away. And
Yeah.
so I know homeschooling, like so much of homeschooling too, like they can help with these activities and be
Yeah.
learning things at the same time. So that's just really awesome that you get to do that.
The actual academic people get the misconception that when you homeschool, that you're replacing the 9 to 4 public school with a 9 to 4 at home, and it's just not how it works. Because
Yeah.
if you actually think about it, those teachers are corralling kids probably 5 hours out of the 7 that they have them, like, "Sit down, do that," trying to, like, keep God's little creations sitting still, and they were never meant to be that. So
Right.
the academic portion of our days is a couple hours, and
Yeah.
then it's like on to real life things like, okay, this is what it takes to take care of chickens. This is the food we're preparing today. This is why we're preparing it. And even simple things like taking your kids grocery shopping with you and like talking about the food. Okay, why would we buy this over this? Or why would we not
Right.
buy this? Mom, there's a huge display of all of this food soaked in seed oil. Why do they do that? There's all these lessons that I feel like are super important and super crucial. And a lot of people that encounter both of the girls, they just say, man, they're like little mini adults. At a restaurant, they can order from themselves. They both know how to.
And your youngest is 5?
She's going to be 5 in August. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that ours were close.
For me, it was like I had kids to spend time with kids. I wanted them around. And who's the best influence on your kids? You and your set of values.
And they're
Obviously.
gonna watch you anyway, what you do anyway, and absorb what you say and everything.
Yeah. And it's not a right fit for everybody, but I think that moving forward, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for people to get into it, co-op or whatever, especially with education
Well,
department.
I think too, I don't know, the things that my oldest is in 4th grade now, the things that she's learning in school is stuff that I studied in, like, middle school. And I'm like, I had a hard time then. And I'm like, "Okay, I can't help you with your homework now. Dad's gonna have to. Like, this is just too much for me." And also, some of the stuff they're not gonna use in real life, or they
Right.
might not. I don't know. So, that's a whole thing, but yeah, I love the idea of homeschooling though.
Yeah. The test results for the US are at the worst for math and reading that they've ever been. And
Because they're making them do all this stuff that's too much for them though.
yeah.
Yeah,
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 it's like there's nothing even. It's either that one side, it's too much, or they're just pushing kids through sitting down and just reading with your kids. We read every day. So
yeah.
let's just read with your kids.
I just think it's so funny sometimes to think about stuff like this. But if you go back to the Bible and think about it, it was all basic math. Like the Lord told Noah, get 2 by 2 animals, 2 and 2. Okay, that's easy math. And then even like when building the ark or like the temple or the tabernacle, it's like he gave them specific directions.
Yeah,
They didn't have to figure it out themselves. They didn't have to find the area. The
right.
Lord was like, this is it. I don't know where it came in that we needed to know all of this stuff. There's a time and a place, certain jobs for sure.
Right.
Basic 4th graders needing to know
Right.
some of this.
And then all of that stuff, if you get into a job where it's necessary, it's like something someone will teach you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But then you end up with kids who get out of high school and don't know how to do their taxes or change a tire or plant something or pick the right kind of fruit when they go to the store. And it doesn't make any sense. So I know, though, that you are just huge on how our environment impacts us and the ingredients and the things that are put into all the things we consume. I want to talk to you about the experience with your daughter and her vaccines.
Actually, it was both of them. My old had the worst, but yeah, we'll go into that.
I know there's a lot there.
There's a
We've
lot.
talked about it on and off, and I'm like, we need to just talk about this on the podcast because it's such a controversial topic. So I'm like, let's just talk about it then.
So the first thing I would say would be before we get into it, No one ever showed me an insert on any vaccine ever. There was never any informed consent on my part as a parent from any of the pediatricians. And the 72 vaccines that are on the childhood schedule, none of them have ever been properly safety tested with a placebo. So that's, I think, what people need to know first and foremost.
Also, that people listening make your own decision. This
Yes.
is not to tell you to go one way or the other,
Free.
but this is Becky's experience and
Yeah.
her child's experience, or
Yeah.
both her daughters' experiences. And so it's literally to educate you and share that with you so that you can make better decisions for yourself and your kids.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I wish
that's one of
someone had told me, because the system is just so set up that you just do what you're told, and you trust your doctors. And I do believe that the majority of the doctors have everybody's best interest at heart, because you wouldn't get healed if you didn't care for people. But I think there's a lot of loopholes that allow for a lot of things. And if you just go to the CDC's website and look at the excipient table, will show you every ingredient that's in all of the vaccines. And if you start looking at the ingredients, which is what happened to me. So mind you, my daughter's 11. So this all started, it was, I want to say, I think it was the 6-month shots, and it was the 2-month shots for my youngest. But the majority of babies are born healthy. And then if you look at some of those ingredients, to me, it doesn't make sense why you would inject them into anybody, let alone a little baby. So you've got the thermosol, you've got
this is insane. I'm looking at it right
yeah,
now.
you've got like formaldehyde, you've got
Aluminum.
aluminum, which aluminum crosses the blood-brain barrier. Aluminum is the number one thing attributed to like Alzheimer's disease. There's
Well,
kidney cell lines, there's aborted baby fetus cell lines in there.
for people
Like,
listening too, like it lists this along with every vaccine that these ingredients are in. This is a very transparent resource that's public, but why is it not being brought to the patient's attention?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent on just the why, like why this, why that. What is the truth behind it all? It all started with like skin issues.
When did you first notice that with her after?
She was about
So
6 months old. Yeah, it was right after. The first thing that happened is, and this is what they tell you that's normal, which is it's not normal. It's just become so normalized, was when we brought her home. I tell you to give Tylenol, which is the worst thing that you could do.
depletes glutathione.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just makes it worse for your child. So the Tylenol, and then the screaming started. They're screaming for hours on end, and it's like a blood curdling scream. Like no amount of breastfeeding or coddling or like rocking or anything makes it stop. I remember I didn't even have her in the crib I had her with me, and she was just like propped up, and I literally did not go to sleep at all that night because I was petrified she was going to die. And you call your pediatrician and they say, "Oh, that's normal. Just give them Tylenol. It'll be okay." I'm so grateful that they both were okay, but I now know how bad it was.
Yeah.
That like screaming like that.
But you didn't know. Like
Yeah.
you didn't know.
In the youngest, like Ellie's was bad, but like my youngest was even worse. It was like the things nightmares are made of, that type of screaming.
And you did this again with your second daughter, though, probably because you thought, okay, every baby's different. My doctor's continuing to tell me we need to do. Yeah. Yeah.
As soon as that happened, then I was done. Then there was no more after that for either one.
Because you saw
But
that pattern.
yeah. And like I said, with the oldest one, the whole skin issues and all that stuff. But once I got into a functional doctor, they were very educated and said, you need to understand that screaming is brain swelling. That's brain swelling from all of those ingredients on that excipient crossing the blood-brain barrier and causing extreme distress.
And babies cry to communicate. It's not normal for a baby to cry that much, that bad after a vaccine. It is normal for them to react that way because of the things it's doing to them, but that's not okay.
I just think they're our most like valuable and vulnerable little blessings. And I have a lot of guilt as a mother. I have a lot of anger that like my mother, nobody told me, nobody knew anything. There's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of anger towards like all of that, everything. And there's a lot of guilt because I think I should have been smarter. I should have done all this digging, all this stuff that I dug up after the fact. I should have done that all ahead of time. And it's really hard to help people see. No one ever showed me an insert. You can't read an insert and then still want to do it because the side effect on all of them, like the major, is death. And if
Right.
somebody had shown that to me, I would have been like, absolutely not. No, no. And so it was, like I said, it started with the rashing, like in her elbows and behind her legs. And it was just like constant digging and itching. And they were like, oh, it's atopic dermatitis, everything, all the allergy specialists. We went everywhere, everything, allergy testing, this, that. She's allergic to grass.
Like people listening, how familiar does this sound? This happens to so many people. I hear about it all the time. But also, babies aren't just born into this world allergic to the world.
Right. Oh, they'll grow out of it. Here's some steroid cream. Here's this, here's that. It was just like, it was awful. And I just remember all the nights of her just screaming and just being like, why me? Why is this happening to me at 3 years old, at 2 years old? And it was just awful. And then fast forward, finding a functional nutritionist, a functional doctor that we've been with now for about 3 years. She doesn't have that stuff anymore. We've cleaned it up. We've got the heavy metals, we're removing it all out. We now understand how the actual body system works, how to remove the heavy metals, like what foods are triggering. And then also learning that she has the MTFHR gene also, which you can't
I
give
see.
somebody that has that gene anything with folic acid in it, because it's a man-made folic acid. It's not natural. So
Mhm.
it then ensues a reaction inside her immune system that makes the itching and the digging and she would dig her skin. And then in the process of all that, then I had, like we had talked about before, the health issues with myself. So then it was just like, holy Lord, we are like being inundated. We are being poisoned on all.
Yeah.
And if I don't do something about it, it's just going to be worse. So it's everything. I read every label. I look up every ingredient. I figure out where everything is. Like I said, I try to make the best choices. And with the matcha, I'm like, okay, an organic matcha. Like I don't drink coffee. Try to pick the best thing. And then something comes up and now, oh, it's like loaded with lead and all these toxic heavy metals. No wonder I've been feeling like crap. And then I think, how would I have known? I wouldn't. I'm doing the best that I can. So now I have to just adjust. And it's the same thing with the fluoride and all these things are all neurotoxins. Your body is in a constant flow of things are coming in and how do I get it out? And we have to have the mindset of how do I support my body to keep all the systems flushing, not getting blocked up. Because when you get blocked up, then that's when all these issues happen. You just have to literally put blinders on all the seed oils.
But that's the thing. I think now it's becoming a lot more public of
Yeah.
all these things that are hidden in our foods and vaccines and things like that. But a few years ago, even if we did know these things and we're saying there are some people out there who would hear us and they'd think we're crazy.
Yeah.
When I worked in clinic, I would express some of these concerns to the other people there. And it was like, you can't do that. Like, you can't tell them that or based on like the rules of the clinic or something. And I'm like, but they're a person. They deserve to know these things. And I can't practice if I'm going to keep things from them. And even if you're listening to this and feel fine, you feel great. You feel like you don't have any health concerns, but you take multiple medications and it's, oh, wait, you do. You're realizing maybe I do feel not as great as I could or whatever. Just being proactive about your health and learning to read labels and seeing what's in the things that you're putting in your body is so important.
I don't know if you've ever seen this book before, Allison. This is a super hard book to get a hold of. I'm really fortunate to have got a hold of it.
The Cure for All Diseases. I don't think so.
This is a super old book, I think from the 30s. I had to get a used copy because you just can't find them. But in this book, it gives you everything, right? So I'll just give you an example. This was one of the main parts that if people just understood these types of things, it tells you simple things like your windows open or closed, like why you would want them open or closed, just all sorts of things. But in here, it talks about the horrors in commercial beverages. This was a huge thing.
And this was in the 30s.
Yeah, this was, late 30s or 50s, something like that.
Okay. But decades ago, this was written.
But it talks about the horrors in commercial beverages. So they're talking about soft drinks and stuff like that. It says there may only be a few parts per billion, but a sick person trying to get well cannot afford any solvent intake. So, like me, I can't even smell dryer sheets. I can't even smell laundry. Like it makes me sick because it's like my body is detoxed so much of it out.
Because yeah, you've worked really hard to get
Yeah.
it way.
Yeah. So then it talks about like acetone, benzene, tetrachloride, all this stuff. The way it's written is just so mind blowing. You should just think about it this way, right? If you allow a tiny drop of kerosene or carpet cleaner fluid to get into your pet's food every day, wouldn't you expect your pet to get sick? The whole industry is set up that it stays under a certain part per billion, blah, 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 blah. But over time, it doesn't matter what the parts per billion are. So it's saying like about the soft drinks, such food should be considered unsafe for human consumption or pets or livestock. You know?
Yeah.
And then it goes on, it just tells you like food guidelines, cook in glass or enamel or ceramic. It tells you you don't use Teflon, you scratch a pan and you're getting all of these microplastics and PFAs and all this
Yeah.
stuff in it. But that's like the cooking part of it. But you can go in and find like seizures and it's got all these different things like what to do, toxic heavy metals. It's just super eye-opening, interesting, very homesteady.
Very Becky.
Yeah, yeah. Universal allergies, like if minor allergies are due to your liver being stagnant, like how to clear your liver out, what to look for liver flukes and like parasites. It's just super interesting. This is the stuff that I think people need to just shut the TV and stuff off and just like really think about it.
Just read. Yeah.
There's all this stuff on the shelves. They got to put stuff in it to make it last. Like you don't know
Right.
how long it's been there and then you're putting it in.
Yeah. And if you think about it too, just on that note, if you go cleaning out your pantry, or hopefully not yours, but somebody else's pantry, and you find a bunch of stuff in there that's expired, typically you just notice it because the expiration date, not always because it looks old. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times too, it's, oh, it just might be a little stale or something, but
Yeah.
for the most part, it still looks the same.
Yeah. It's good to just like you said, find some stuff that you want to, like I said, the excipient table was a good place to start. And then you just go from there. And then you look at all the ingredients and like everything. And you're just like, why is that in there?
I'm going to link that table or that website for those listening if you want to check it out, because I knew some of this information, but I don't know if I had actually seen this resource. And this is just terrifying, honestly.
And the one that always just really shocked me was like the formaldehyde, because formaldehyde is what they use to embalm dead people.
So who decided to put that in people's
Um,
body? This says aluminum containing adjuvants are vaccine ingredients that have been used in vaccines since the 30s.
Yeah.
And you think about just all the chronic disease that's erupted since then, and even so many diseases and conditions that weren't even around until then, until like after then, or later on, once you see the effects of this in the older
Yeah.
population.
If you go back and you dig hard enough, like you can see that all of the childhood vaccines, the diseases that they're saying that they're vaccinating against, they all were basically non-existent
Right. They were man-made anyway.
at the introduction of the vaccines. And we know it's hard to talk to people, say my grandma who's 96, who went through like polio and whatever and lost a cousin to polio. But you can't explain to her that it wasn't actually the polio, that it was the vaccine and the DDT
Mhm.
that was being sprayed. So it's a good deep dive. You're ready for it. Like you can't go into it, you don't really care. You got to be like, okay, well, why? My ultimate philosophy and like thought process is why would God make us where we needed something like that to survive?
Right. He wouldn't.
We're made in his perfect image. Our bodies are like super resilient that you can redo your whole gut microbiome in what, like 7 days or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
You're-
like in 3 days.
Big.
Even in the wilderness, God provided everything that they needed, all the Israelites. And I will say too, as somebody who's trained in Western medicine and functional medicine, during my Western medicine training, we learned vaccines when they're supposed to be given. We learned the schedule of it and what each vaccine was for. Never were we ever taught what all is in it.
Yeah.
So your provider may not even know, honestly. They don't know everything. It's too hard to cram everything into a few years of studying.
Yeah. I would just urge parents going to be new parents, just look at the ingredients, look at the history. You can spend a couple hours and just be like, okay. And then you go down the hole of like, how do they get the human cell line from aborted babies?
Yeah. And if I sit here and look at this too long, I'm going to have some severe anxiety over this. But it's like, who's out to kill the population?
Right. Yeah.
This is not humane. I have no words. I'm looking at this sheet still, y'all. I can't. I'm going to link that though for anybody who wants to check it out. It's just a little mind blowing, honestly. But
Hopefully there's been a lot of progress with, like you said, the seed oils are finally getting exposed. They're
yeah,
everybody always wondered, oh, my grandpa always ate steak and eggs and butter and lived to be 90 something. There was a reason. Those are the things, that your body needs. So seed oils are in the spotlight right now. I think a lot. I've been hounding on the seed oil thing for probably 10, 15 years. The newest, I would say the thing that's up and coming right now that people are realizing is, okay, they may have got away from the seed oils and then they were doing coconut oil or ghee or tallow or olive oils. But now they're realizing it's something like 75% of the olive oil that comes out of Europe or whatever is all rancid. So it's not actually a pure olive oil. The only way to know, there's two ways to know if you have a pure olive oil, is if you flip your bottle over and it says one country of origin. So it's
okay.
coming from one country. I would say 99% of the bottles that I can find anywhere, I'll say like Italy, Sicily, all different things. If it's all coming from different countries, it's being cut. So
Right.
you're getting an original olive oil, but then it's getting cut with seed oil,
Mhm.
getting cut with all this other stuff. So the actual yellowy color of olive oil is not true. That real pure olive oil is green. And you should be able to put it in your fridge, and the next day it should be cloudy. That's a pure. I found one country of origin olive oil that we use now, but now knowing and tasting the difference, you can't go back to a different one. It tastes like pure chemical. It's so strange how your body just adapts and tells you, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah,
it's wild.
that's crazy. I need to go check my olive oils.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Becky, I feel like we have hit on some pretty awesome topics that people can definitely like deep dive into. And I honestly don't even know what else to say. I'm just like, y'all just go read your labels, take care of yourselves, know what you're putting in your bodies. But if there's any other piece of advice that you would leave for our listeners today, what would it be?
I would say, I think I said this on the last podcast too, is trust your instincts.
Mhm.
Trust your instincts as a mother, as a child
To
of
your gut.
God. Yes, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. If something just doesn't seem right, take a few minutes. We're so fortunate to have the internet. If you just Google stuff, you're going to get what Google wants you to see. You
Yeah.
got to
Take your time to find the right source.
time and poke
But
around and use other search engines, and you'll find things. And there's a ton of great Instagram accounts, moms across America, like they food test everything. The Girl Scout cookies that all came back, everything,
that
100%.
was crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so touch on that really quick though for
Yeah.
people knowing what you're talking about.
So Moms Across America is an organization that like goes in and does like private testing of all kinds of things. And they tested all of the fast food and everything came back awful with antibiotics, contraceptives, everything. But then they did the Girl Scout cookies and everything came back 100% positive for toxic heavy metals, lead, cadmium, all that stuff in there.
Y'all, watch out.
Yeah,
Read the
there's
labels.
you can find all of those groups that are testing, and that's what I try to follow. Children's Health Defense, which RFK is part of too. They do a lot of stuff also. So
Yeah.
subscribe to their newsletter because they send out a ton of stuff. Across America is really good too. But yeah, the way I look at it is if it's in a box I'm really not going to trust it.
Why would you eat it?
Yeah.
It's
Girls are always like, I want this. And I said, okay, we can just make it. Whatever they want, I show them how to just make it natural so that I'm not depriving them.
Yeah. And as kids too, you don't want them to feel left out. And
Yes.
yeah.
Like
It's
the fruit snacks and stuff that are just loaded with dyes and everything. I'm like, okay, fruit snacks are easy to make. It's gelatin and juice and a little bit of honey. So we just make our own.
yeah.
And I think that's a key important skill to teach kids is just because something's available doesn't mean that it's healthy for you or edible. And you can always figure out a different way. So yeah, trust your gut.
Yeah. Love it, Becky. This was awesome. And I'm going to link all of those resources and everything in the show notes for you guys listening. Okay.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.
Hey there, it's Allison. And if you're anything like me, coffee is a non-negotiable part of your day. But did you know that most coffee is loaded with mold, toxins, and pesticides that could be messing up your gut and hormones? Yeah, no thanks. That's why I only drink Purity coffee. It's organic, tested for toxins, and it's packed with antioxidants that actually support your health instead of wrecking it. It's smooth, delicious, and best of all, it does not leave me feeling jittery or bloated. So if you're ready to upgrade your coffee game and support your gut at the same time, grab a bag of Purity coffee today. Your body will thank you. Oh, and because you are part of the What the Gut family, I've got a special link just for you. Just head to puritycoffee.com and use code AllisonGetsWell for 20% off your first order. Cheers to coffee that loves you back. Hey friend, let's talk about something real. Bloating, stomach pain, and fatigue. You do not have to live like this. I know because I was there too. I was frustrated, exhausted, and trying everything, but still felt miserable. And that's exactly why I created my Get Well one-on-one gut health coaching program to help women like you finally get to the root cause of your symptoms, heal your gut, and feel like yourself again. No more guessing, no more Band-Aid fixes, just real, sustainable solutions tailored to your body. So if you're ready to ditch the bloating, boost your energy, and actually enjoy food without discomfort, let's do this together. Head to AllisonGetsWell.com or reach out to me on Instagram at AllisonGetsWell to learn more and apply today. Because you deserve to feel good in your body every single day.